You know, over the years, I've learned that some of the greatest struggles we face aren't the loud ones. They're not the debates on cable news or the arguments around dinner tables or the disagreements that spill out onto the streets. No, the hardest battles are often fought in quiet places, in the spaces between what we feel and what we're willing to say, in the long pause before we speak a truth that might hurt, but might also heal. Because silence, well, silence can feel like a refuge, a shelter, a way to avoid conflict, avoid uncertainty, avoid the risk that someone might pull away from us. And in this early 21st century, when the world seems to move faster than our hearts can catch up, when polarization sharpens the edges of every conversation, when technology amplifies every misstep we've grown accustomed to holding back, to biting our tongues, to choosing comfort over honesty. But the cost of that silence is far greater than we like to admit. I've seen how it erodes trust, not all at once, but slowly, quietly, like water wearing down a stone. I've seen how it keeps families from healing, communities from progressing, and nations from confronting the truths that define who we are. And I've seen how the fear behind that silence, fear of being judged, fear of losing a friend, fear of standing alone, can hold back entire generations from moving forward. Yet, in every era, including this complicated moment in our own, there have always been people, ordinary citizens, leaders, young folks just trying to find their voice who decide that silence is no longer an option, people who understand that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the decision to speak even when the stakes are high. And when they choose to break that silence, when they choose truth over ease, something remarkable happens. Others begin to rise beside them. Think about the turning points in our history. Movements for racial justice that revealed the truths America had long avoided, activists fighting to address health crises that too many refused to acknowledge, individuals who looked out at their communities and said, we can't keep pretending everything's fine. We need to talk about this openly, honestly, together. Truth has a way of becoming undeniable, and once it breaks through, it carries with it the possibility of healing, of reform, of progress. But progress requires something of us. It demands patience. It demands humility. And most importantly, it demands discomfort because growth rarely comes from the warm embrace of the familiar. It comes from those moments when we sit across from someone we disagree with, and instead of raising our voices, we open our hearts. When we admit what we don't know, when we ask hard questions, when we choose empathy over pride. Leadership at its core is not about having all the answers. It's about creating the conditions for truth to be spoken safely, boldly, respectfully. It's about recognizing that democracy is fragile and that its strength depends not on the volume of our opinions, but on our willingness to engage honestly with one another, to listen, to learn, to speak even when our voice shakes. We face ethical dilemmas every day in how we tell the truth, when to speak, how to speak, whether our words will build someone up or tear them down. And yet, refusing to speak at all doesn't protect us from harm, it ties us to it. It makes us complicit in the very problems we hope will disappear if we just look the other way. But the truth is, avoiding the hard conversation doesn't spare us from pain, it only delays the inevitable. And when the truth finally emerges, as it always does, it comes with interest. I've often said that democracy isn't self-executing, it's a collective project, one that requires constant attention, constant participation, constant conversation. And that conversation cannot flourish in the shadows. It needs light, it needs vulnerability, it needs the courage of individuals willing to say, here's what I see, here is what I feel, here is what I know we must face together. And so the question before us today is not simply why we don't speak up, but what we lose when we don't. Because silence can fracture unity, it can widen divides, it can stall justice and corrode the progress we've spent generations building. But when we choose to speak, to name the problem, to confront the fear, to tell the truth with empathy, we give our communities a chance to rebuild trust, restore dignity, and renew hope. Hope is not blind optimism. It's not wishing away our shortcomings or pretending everything is fine. Hope is the stubborn belief that if we're willing to face the truth, no matter how uncomfortable, no matter how painful, we can create something better on the other side. And let me tell you, I still believe in that. I still believe in the power of ordinary people to rise above fear. I still believe in the moral courage that emerges when a person decides that their voice matters. I still believe that the hardest truths hold the seeds of our greatest healing. So today I ask you to consider this. What truth have you been carrying alone? What conversation have you avoided because you fear what might follow? And what might change? What might finally begin to heal if you found the courage to speak? Because silence is a cost our democracy cannot afford. And your voice, your honest, vulnerable, inconvenient, necessary voice may be the very thing that moves us all a little closer to the world we're still striving to build.